5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And if I'm not mistaken, we are live with Brother Mick Hall, a friend of mine, a long time ago. Your dad invested in my family and your family invested in my family and made a big impact in who I am. But I appreciate you taking the time. It is 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock for you. I'm sure you got husbandly duties, you got daddy duties and things you could be doing. So I appreciate you taking the time. If you would, maybe in 50, 100 words or so, 2 minutes, give us a brief description of who Mick Hall is.
Okay. Well, I grew up in a Christian home, and my parents are Mike and Cindy Hall from Elgin, Illinois. They work there under Pastor Gomez, Northwest Ohio Baptist Church. And I'm probably going to go over the 50 words, but anyway.
It's all right.
Grew up in a Christian home and, got saved at a young age. In fact, got saved at football camp. And then slowly just began drifting away from the Lord. Not even so much, going into the far country physically, although, there were things that I did outwardly, but mainly in my heart. And then finally got things right with God. And found that God can do a whole lot more with my life than I could. So now I'm able to work at Faith Baptist Church in Bourbonnais, Illinois with Pastor Terry Angel, and been able to do that for the past 11 years now. So living the dream.
Amen. The ministry
now
is great.
I'm able to talk to Micah. So
wow.
This is where the journey really it's the apex.
Yeah, you've hit rock bottom, man. It was all uphill until now, and you're at the bottom. You're at the bottom.
Yeah.
I tried to small talk for a little while before we jump straight into it. But to jump straight into it, just something I keyed on. You talked about kind of going away from the Lord for a little while, and remind me of the time frame. Was that before or after being saved? You kind of strayed from what you knew you're supposed to be doing. Was that before or after salvation?
That was after. So I got saved when I was 13 years old. Of course, made a profession when I was younger, but it didn't really become real to me. I didn't really put my trust in Christ until I was a teenager, and then from that point, initially in my junior high years, I was excited. I was on fire, as on fire as a junior higher can be. And then just kind of the older that I got, I just began drifting farther and farther away. And, I wish I could blame it on friends. I wish I could blame it on, even outside influences, but really it wasn't. It's just my heart wandering. And then, of course, my youth pastor, which you've had on, Brother Jay Reed, he was a big influence on my life. But I think the older that I get, I realize, yes, my youth pastor had a huge influence on my life, but it was actually more so my parents and my pastor, and huge emphasis on my parents, who made the difference in order to help me get right. But what was important was, I saw my dad where he was at. And then I struggled because I was like, there's no way I could get up there. And of course, Brother Reed has always been incredible as far as intellect, wit, anything you want to talk about, he'll if you want to talk about the growing habits of Zimbabwe, he'll tell you the ins and outs of that just off the top of his head. But he was younger. He was youthful, and so that, that draw me to him. And when there was an opening and, my world just kind of came crashing down, and I finally went to him and I said, I'm done, I'm done fighting. I'm done. And it wasn't because I didn't love my dad. And it wasn't because I didn't love my pastor. It's just that, I had felt like I had let everybody else down so much. And so I kind of, I went to this intermediate, this guy in the middle that I felt could help me repair that relationship with my parents, repair that relationship with God. And he got me back, in my Bible. He got me, working on my relationship with my parents. And so while I credit him for sure, then the real nuts and bolts were there with mom and dad, because mom and dad, it was important that they stay on me, because that's what kind of made my world crash down, is because I couldn't go. There was frustration because I wanted to be in the world and I wanted to do my own thing. And then, but because of the rules and the consistency of my parents, I couldn't get out to that. I couldn't, gain access to, for sake of a better word, the filth and the worldliness that I wanted to get to. And so finally, it just felt like everything was just falling in on me. And I just said, that's it. I'm done. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of the struggle, tired of the fight. And so I turned to him, and then he turned me back to my parents, turned me back to my pastor, and turned me back to God, which is what I feel my job as a youth pastor is now, is to turn our teenagers back to their biblical authorities. While I have some leadership and some authority in their life, their biblical authority is their parents, their pastor, and their God. And so my job is to turn them back to that. So I know I've kind of scatterbrained,
No, it's
shotgun, sprayed all over the place on that, but that's kind of what happened when I was in high school. My 2 weeks left in my junior year, I got kicked out of high school, and I was not returning for my senior year. And my dad, he was just kind of looking, well, what am I going to have him do? He's working at the church, so it's not like I could exactly go and work with him. My mom was working at the church. I couldn't go work with her. Nobody could stay at home with me. I needed somebody to stay home with me. So there was a couple of men in the church who were construction workers, good, godly men, who were faithful to church. And so I got to work with them. And that's a whole nother story. But finally, I started working on my relationship with God, and started working on I got right with God, and I started moving forward. And second semester, I think it was, probably middle of January or so, my preacher Gomez, he had seen the difference, and he had seen that I was desiring to go in the right direction and move forward. And so he made a way for me to be able to get back into the academy. I graduated there, and then started working 2 jobs to get ready for Bible college. And Bible college was full steam ahead. And I never, of course, we always have things that we got to work on. There's never a point of arriving spiritually, but that was the breaking point. It was almost like either I'm going to go off the deep end and I'm going to be, dive headlong into the world, or I'm going to run back to God. And there's one way or another. I can't stand still. I have to move forward, or I have to move back. And, by the grace of God, just the influences that were around me pushed me towards the right decision. So
awesome. There's a lot. I got to pause for just a moment, because if my mom is listening, I say the word awesome all the time when I'm interviewing, and so I'm going to do my absolute best. So you can catch me if I say awesome. Let me know, and we'll try to stop that. But I have to think of other synonyms: cool, fantastic, all of those.
Neato.
There you go. There's a lot to unpack.
The teens like it when I throw out the word fantabulous.
Fantabulous.
It's fantastic and fabulous all together. It's fantabulous. So,
I don't mean to head off what you just talked about, because I want to double back to that. But I put in the notes something about long form conversation about anything and everything. I just watched Mary Poppins for the very first time, the old one. It was 1968, very first time I've ever seen that movie before. I don't know why, but supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Okay.
I got that word out of it. So anything, there you go. Anything and
I
everything.
feel like our relationship has gone to another level. Seeing as you're comfortable enough to tell me that you sat down and you watched Mary Poppins.
Does it make any difference that I had my almost? Oh, man. All right. Can I text?
We both know that movie was for you.
It's a great movie. But can I text you my man card right now? Can I just send it via the interwebs?
Hey, you know what they say? Real men wear pink. I don't, because I don't subscribe to that. But evidently, real men watch Mary Poppins.
There you go. It was good.
Haven't seen it in years, but to each his
own.
So
you've seen it too. So don't be hating too much.
I did. I was
okay.
In all honesty, I was probably all of 8 years old, but not all of us can cross that bridge in our youth.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot we can get into with that. Anyway, back to the spiritual stuff, I guess. You were saying one of the questions I wanted to dive into.
I feel like you're having a hard time dragging this back into the.
Well, sometimes when you're preaching a message and you like a thought occurs to you, you start chasing a rabbit and it turns into a warthog, and you're like, I can't get this one. You gotta leave it alone.
Well, every week I preach in, of course, for about 9 years, I preached in junior church, and that's a whole nother animal. But then, after junior church for 11 years, as long as I've been here, I preached in teen church, and that is another animal as well. Mm-hmm. And in fact, about a year ago, there was this one guy that came. He was a few fries short of a Happy Meal, but yet, he was as boisterous as they come. And no joke, this guy, he was really into my sermon. And I was like, this is really touching this young man's heart. And I really realized that it meant something when he started pantomiming my sermon. Like everything that I would say, he would act it out, and he would do all of these things. And, I have this problem when somebody does something like that, I'm entertained. I enjoy it.
Rightly so.
So I let him go, but, it kind of dragged. So anyway, I'm sorry. You were dragging this back to the spiritual realm.
Trying to. I threw it overboard. We'll try dragging it back on. How did you...
One more thing. Sorry.
Go ahead.
We had a preaching club this Sunday. Uh-huh. I call it Preaching Club, not Preacher Boys Club. Because, a lot of times Christian young men, they're afraid of that term, preacher boy. Mm-hmm. So we call it Preaching Club, just so I want all the guys to come up so they can learn how to preach. Right. Well, a young man got up and preached this Sunday. His text was Revelation 6:12. I believe at that point it was about the sixth seal, and the sun or the moon or one of those turned blood red, and somehow he tied that into Ghostbusters.
Okay. I've never seen that one. Any of them. The all-female one, none of them. I haven't seen any of them.
Yeah.
So
you seem to know a lot about it.
I don't know. I don't know, man.
One. I didn't realize there were so many varieties. I mean, so what do you like?
I don't know, man.
You just check this stuff out just to kind of be up on all the stuff.
You got to know what to preach against, right? Isn't that? I did hear a preacher say a long time ago something about he watched some music videos back in the day. He had to go on YouTube in its infancy, however long ago that was, to watch to know what kind of artists to preach. Anyway, in Preaching Club, do you do popcorn preaching? Like you give them passages to preach, or do they bring their own? How does that work?
I have a philosophy where I don't make anybody preach. I think that is, again, there are many other great preachers out there, and if they disagree with this, then I'm sorry. They're right. I'm wrong. I'm just, from my personal experience, There have been way too many people that we have forced to get up and preach. And if you have to force somebody to get up and preach, then they shouldn't be preaching.
Hmm.
That should be something that's burning within them,
Sure.
and it should be something that God has placed in their heart. And if God has not, either God has not placed that in their heart, or God's placed it in their heart and they're fighting it, then I don't need to make them preach, because they're going to get up and they're going to say something that embarrasses them, or they're going to say something that embarrasses me, and probably both. So I don't do that. Even in this setting, I tell them, hey, you come, I will never make you get up and preach. The one thing that I will make them do is I'll make them get up and I'll make them give their testimony. So we did that this last week.
It's a good way to get their feet wet.
Yeah. And there were guys who have never preached before, and quite honestly will never preach, just because. But they come to preaching club because I encourage it, because I ask them to, because I say this is a good thing to do. They'll never preach a message. I know it. But they got up and they gave their testimony, and I was blown away at how well they did, because you know what, that's just not what's in them to do. And God's gonna bless them in other ways. Who knows? God may call them, but as of right now, that's not even on the radar. So
sure.
Anyway, that's my thought. Is just I don't really make it. Now if it's something, I'm not opposed to it, especially in a way, if you can do it in a way that's fun, and you can do it to where they're having a good time. I have no problem with that, for sure.
Sure. We did something in homiletics. Got my undergraduates from Golden State Baptist College, and we had homiletics 1, homiletics 2. Probably I went to Providence for a year. I'm assuming that it was probably 2 homiletics classes, or maybe 1. But homiletics 2, once you're supposed to be a little better at your craft, a little bit better, we did something where one guy picks the book of the Bible, next guy picks the chapter, next guy picks the verse. And so that's hard enough as it is. That's fun. It's fun though. You have to do that. But then our instructor added an additional wrinkle after he taught out, the difference between truth and fallacy, obviously, and then the difference between truth, fallacy, and springboard texts, where you just take a snippet and don't preach anything having to do with that. So we got book of the Bible, chapter, verse, and the last guy got to pick, are you going to preach a truth, a fallacy, or a springboard? And you had to do it on purpose. So it allowed you to, when you got fallacy, you got to go, just overboard and be hilarious with it. Like maybe preach about Ghostbusters and blood moons. But it was a really good practice, because there's a lot of guys, they preach springboard text and have no idea they're doing it.
That setting is completely different, because
sure.
You're talking about people who are called. You're talking about that. I'm dealing specifically with teenagers who, I'm praying that God would burn in their heart to do something. And right now it's not even a thought.
Sure.
So right now it's not even, I think of all our young men that are there. We had like 17 guys that were there on Sunday.
Amen.
And I don't say that, pridefully. That's just what happened. We had 17, but of the 17, we've got like 4 that are called to preach. Do I desire that I had 17 called to preach? Yes, I do. And I'm praying that, maybe this will warm their hearts, and Lord will use this to challenge them in that area to have that happen.
Sure.
But they need to be God called, not Brother Mick called.
Amen.
And that happened way too much in the past. So, but I'm sure I will be corrected in some form.
It's all right. To get back to where we were going before Mary Poppins and Ghostbusters and everything, how did, and I think you'll understand how I'm wording this, how did you have the opportunity to go as far off as you did in the household that you came from? And I ask that because our dad's very similar. I asked that, not heck, how did your dad let this happen? Because I know he didn't just stand idly by and let that happen, let his son go that direction. So for teenagers, maybe a teenager listening that's in a Christian 3 services and soul winning, type, how did that come about? And then what was that? Expand a little bit maybe on the restoration process and how you were able to knit that fellowship. Because I'm very glad to say that I'm friends with my parents now. I love my parents. I respect them immensely. Just spent 30 minutes on the phone with them a little bit before I talking to you, and but it's also because they didn't try to be friends when I was 13, and I'm talking about there. But can you expand on that just a little bit?
Ultimately, the reason why that happened is because every person, whether they grow up in a Christian home or they grow up in what we would call, a bus kid's home, they have to decide for themselves whether or not Christianity is real. Your parents can wake you up every morning and can make you read your Bible, but unless you decide that you're going to get something from that, it doesn't become real. I think there are benefits, and I think it's a good thing to do. I make my son, he's in 2nd grade, I make him get up and I make him read his Bible. Our kindergartner, we're getting there, but and I think that's a good thing to do. But there comes a point when everybody has to make a choice, has to make a decision whether or not Christianity is real to them. And it's beyond just whether or not you're going to trust Christ as your Savior. It's beyond that. It's whether or not you're going to give your life to Him, and you're going to be fully surrendered. It doesn't matter if you want to be a coal miner, and I know I'm speaking to the choir here. It doesn't matter if you want to be an IT guy at some company or whatever. You still have to decide whether or not you're going to be fully Christ's and fully surrendered to His will. So, I can be, a trash collector, and be fully surrendered to God's will. Or, but at the same time, I could also be a trash collector while I'm running from God's will. Either one, if it's God's will, that's God's will. But, so, that's what happened. My parents, they pushed me. I was in every youth conference. I was at every camp. I was at every teen activity. I was at every preaching service. I was at everything, but I had not made it my, I had not surrendered completely yet. So, why? That's why. Okay. And it's because my parents I had such a sheltered home. It's because my parents were so strong that I didn't ruin my life. There was plenty, there was plenty of others that went out and they completely ruined their life because they had access, because they could. My parents never made that available, and it was because of the rules that kept me safe from making a bigger mess. But just like the prodigal, he had to come to himself. He had to realize where he was at. He had to realize, that he was in the pig pen. And the pig pen could have been, if he was wise, he would have realized that, being in the city, that he was in the pig pen because he was away from the Father.
Sure.
And but he had to literally get into the pig pen. And I was not literally, in a pig pen, but I was inside. My heart was as pig pen as it gets. And so, it was not an immediate process. I couldn't get into the house and walk up to mom and dad and say, "Mom, Dad, I'm sorry. Let's hug it out."
Sure.
It didn't work like that because the damages that I had caused, the things that I had the hurt that I had caused, and the trust that I had broken, it took a while. It took a while before that could be. Um, but it all started not with a decision to make things right with mom and dad, and not with a decision to talk to my youth pastor. It started off with a decision to get right with God.
Hmm.
I had to realize that this pig pen that I was in was because I was away from God spiritually. And so I got right with God. I I I repented, and I forsook. And then I took the necessary steps. There were some embarrassing steps that I had to take, some public steps, um, and to this day, I go to Northwest, and there's still people that will look at me sideways. There's a lot of people that are thankful, to see the difference in my life, but there's still some that say, I remember, and for good reason. Um, but it all started with repairing my relationship with God, going to Him and realizing, just like Joseph, Pastor Angel in school chapel, he's been talking about Joseph, and he realized that the sin that he was doing wasn't against anybody but against God. How can I do this great sin against God? And that's what we're doing when we're doing wrong. It's not just something that we're doing against our parents. It's not just something we're doing against our rules. It's not just something that we're doing against the institution, but it's a sin against God, and he's the first one that we have to go to get right in order to then progress down and fix that relationship. Then with mom and dad, it was in mom and dad, there's a tremendous amount of love, and because there's a tremendous amount of love, there's also a lot of grace that they showed, but they were wise to not just assume or not just take for granted that I had completely got right. They made sure that I took the necessary steps to truly get right, instead of just why is it you're a youth pastor, why is it you see teenagers who go to teen camp, and if I'm talking too much, you can shut me up.
No,
That's fine.
no.
Jump in.
I'm interviewing you,
Jump
so
in,
it's
man.
it's okay. It's okay.
Oh, hey, I'm going to
No,
turn the tables here. We're
every
going to
time
start.
I talk, I'm talking about Mary Poppins and all that. So you
It's
go
good.
ahead.
It's all good. It makes for an entertaining conversation. But you're a youth pastor. You go to camp. You see teenagers come to the altar, and they're crying, and they're giving things up. Giving everything up, and they're. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about an instance that a teenager had given up that I cannot give over the airwaves, but we'll talk sometime.
Sounds
And
good.
but they give something up, and then they go home, and it's like you see them the next week, and what's going on? They're in the same exact stuff. Why? Because they thought it was going to the altar and just praying was going to fix it, and it doesn't. It doesn't do anything until you get right with God. You understand who the sin is against, and then you have to set up the parameters. You have to set up the boundaries in order to make sure that it doesn't happen again. So anyway, so my parents were wise in that area to help me set up boundaries, set up some things that would help me when my flesh wanted to drift back to the world.
Absolutely.
So,
I heard a pretty smart guy. Now he was talking about business and growing a business and things like that. But
what movie was this?
it wasn't a movie. It wasn't a movie. I promise. He was asked something to the effect of, how do you build a network? How do you get in contact with and get in the good graces, basically, of those in the field that you're trying to get into, the higher ups, the people that you really want to talk to? And what he said was, you've got to bring value to them. But the what I took away from it was what he said next. He says, you don't bring value on your terms. You bring value on their terms. And to me, I thought of Cain and Abel. Cain poured some sweat into growing what he gave to God,
Sure.
but it wasn't what God asked for. And
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head with saying you got right with God first. A lot of times we get so out of order. We feel like we need to go to our parents first. We need to, right those wrongs. Just like people we hear all the time, I've got to give up my drinking before I can get saved. And we know the fallacy of that. But you've got to do it on his terms, do it his way, or else it's never going to work out. It's interesting. I appreciate very much you being willing to be open. I know it's a buzzword, but authentic about what you dealt with, who you were, and what you did as a teenager. Because I think it could be helpful to a lot of people, because most people don't want to talk about their faults. I know I don't necessarily, it's not my favorite thing to talk about, and probably not your favorite thing either, but
definitely not awesome.
Definitely not awesome. Yes. So somebody asked if they could submit a question on Facebook. I just peek in every once in a while the comments, and wouldn't you know it, somebody did. A Jim/Melinda Pate wants to know if you would consider Mountain Dew a vice for a youth pastor. Can we talk about this for a second? My dad drinks Mountain Dew, so I don't know if I grew up in a. You tell me if I grew up in a sinful household or what.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
For sure. I mean, you want me to expound or?
Well, so real quick, what's
part of our essay, or
what's the backstory? You're drinking Diet Pepsi, it looks like right now. What's the backstory on this Mountain Dew thing?
To be honest with you, the Mountain Dew thing's coming out of the left field. Just the fact that the question came from Jim and Melinda Pate is and not so much Melinda. By the way, congratulations, Melinda, on that baby. That's outstanding. By the way, just so you know, Micah, she had a baby.
I was picking that up.
I'm assuming you were connecting.
I was.
But no idea where Mountain Dew is coming from. As far as the Diet Pepsi, where does that come from? Well, other than where does it literally come from? This is all I had left in the office. So I'm putting down some Mountain Dews tonight, or it's not Mountain Dew, some Diet Pepsis tonight.
Got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
So, and one of the awesome things about doing this live is you do get to interact with people a little bit. Someone that we both know, Adrian Ferrari, remarked on. He said, "Look at those gray hairs." But I think it's just the lighting in your studio there. I think you need to tweak the lighting, the coloration a little bit, because it's definitely not you with the actual gray hairs, right?
I believe the Lord calls it the hoary head. There's a lot of wisdom that comes with.
So does he need to watch out for she bears or something like that, brother Ferrari?
Yeah.
Probably so.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure how many she bears are down in Argentina, but be careful. He talks too much about this gray hair.
Might find him.
My mom might come after him. And
you do not want to be on the bad side of Mrs. Hall. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Now, how old were you?
I can tell you that from experience.
Probably. We just talked about your wayward youth, and yeah, you probably don't want to be on her bad side.
Yeah, been there, done that. Could write the book, but I will not, because I don't want to rehash any of those moments. To be honest with you,
sure.
I've covered them up. I've buried them. They're in a very, very secret place in the back of my mind that I just try to keep down. So
I think if I keep peeking at the comments, we'll never get anywhere. We'll be back on Mary Poppins here in a second. So I have a question for you.
Come on, bring him on.
If I just come around and ask, how old are you, Brother Hall?
Seriously, man.
Seriously,
I know.
Only reason I ask is because how old were you when my parent? Were you around in Korea, or was that before your time? Or how old are you around, or when were you born? After Korea, your parents there? I want to get into that for a second.
Yeah. All right. So, I am 34 years old. Okay. I do not live in a van down by the river. And I am not divorced. And I am not living on government cheese. Sorry. But I was, let's see here. I was born in 1984. I was between the ages of 3 to 5 when we lived in Korea.
Awesome.
Moved there when I was
Oh,
3.
that was awesome again. I'm sorry.
Moved back when I was 5.
Sorry, Mom. I just
What's
said
that?
awesome again. Sorry, Mom. She gets on me for saying awesome, so I apologize. Go ahead.
That's pretty much all I had with that one. So I was 5 years old when we moved out. No, I shouldn't say that. Okay, yeah, I vaguely remember your parents.
Okay.
I don't have a huge. Now you probably have the kind of memory where it's like, you can remember in detail, every event pre 2 years old. I don't. I can't even remember what happened yesterday with much certainty.
Sure.
So, and I would, I'd also like to say, as far as all of this goes, I'm sorry if you thought by having me on that you would get my massive Twitter following to jump on board. But little did you know.
That's man. How did I get you when you don't have social media? And I was going to get there.
How? Why? Why
Well,
did you get me?
in all seriousness, these first 20 minutes or so. No, we've been on for a little while now. How long have we been on? 36 minutes. Wow, it's just flown right by. In all seriousnness,
You're having fun. I'm sorry. Seriously.
in all seriousness, can you talk about? And you said anything and everything. Why no social media? I'd be curious to get your take on that.
Okay.
As this is broadcast on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, Twitter, Twitch, all of them, tell us why no social media.
All right. And just I'm doing a shout out to my wife who's watching via Facebook right now. Mm-hmm. It's just a personal decision, and
sure.
and I can't give you a Bible reason. I can't say that. It's just for many years, we preached against it, social media, and I'm not saying that that necessarily everything we preached about it was right on point, but I think there's a lot of wisdom. I think there's a lot of dangers in social media for our young people. If we had another couple of hours, we could talk about the dangers that are out there for our young people, and not only for our young people, for adults too. And so, while my wife has Facebook, I haven't, forbidden her or anything like that from social media. I just felt I took the stance of, if I'm going to warn the teenagers and I'm going to tell them, look, guys, I just don't think it's wise for you to use, then I figured I would continue that example by not doing it. There's a lot of good things that can be done through social media. That's just what I watch. I'll probably go out and start tweeting tomorrow. If that's up to this point, that's the reason why. And I get sick. I get sick and tired of a lot of the self promotion. I get sick of a lot of the people, and the only reason why they have social media is so they can get the next meeting or whatever. And if that's what the Lord uses, praise the Lord. But I just I've got enough. I got enough to worry about. Me taking care of myself. I really don't need to know. How your bunion clipping went this morning. And it really does nothing for me. Now my wife, she'll give me the updates. I will say Facebook is good for one thing.
Sure, go ahead.
And I do go on my wife's Facebook account so I can check out the marketplace. That is a magical place. I may or may not be looking for a truck on there right now. Not because I'm ready to buy, just because I am lusting. So there you go. Yet another reason why not to have social media.
Right. Well, I'm curious, and maybe Austin in Rachel Marriott could tell us what's the percentage of time you'd have to be on before you have to, like by the bylaws, have to make it Mick in Leah Hall before you have to put the husband and the wife. I was just curious about what the time frame is before you have to do that. I guess if you're only on Marketplace, we can forgive that because it's basically Craigslist on Facebook, so we can forgive that.
It's so much better than Craigslist.
That's true.
It is so much better. It really is. But yeah, you know what? Maybe I'll have to do some research. I'll have to find out, and we'll have to replay this. Maybe cut this segment out, and otherwise, I'm going to be out there on social media for all to see that I'm a hypocrite.
Right. The Snap Face, the Instabook, all of them. You're going to get on all of them. That's one thing I love about.
God, we just need to get our face in the book. I mean, come on. Yeah.
I have to put this in. I think by contract, I have to put in at least one every 3 episodes that I'm a Patriots fan. And so one of the things I do love about Bill Belichick, is the coach of the New England Patriots, is his just deadpan. Anytime someone asks him about anything regarding social media, he just gives them just the blankest stare and, says something about Instabook or Snapface or something like that. And so I've always appreciated that about him.
I've enjoyed our conversation so far. But seriously, man, you've gone from Mary Poppins, Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
I mean,
right. I'm just curious if the viewer count it just dives off a cliff when I start talking about the Patriots, but it's or all the haters start coming out of the.
Is there a viewer count? Is there what are we up to? Are we up to?
Do you really want to know? We just tapped 26. We're sitting at 25 right now.
Woo!
Yeah. So here's the thing: you don't have a Twitter following, but it's because you're so mysterious. Everybody's watching because
something.
That's why I had you. Everyone's like, I've got to know.
They're like,
it's like
he's on.
Exactly.
Give us a little look into his personal life. Is that his office back there? Let's look through. What book does he have?
Yeah, I in college, someone said, one of the really wise men, and I completely agree with this. He said that there needs to be some. He didn't say complete, but there needs to be some mystique about the office of the pastor, about a minister, about ministry. It doesn't, not that you don't be transparent, but like you said, you don't need to put everything and anything online all the time. So yeah, that's probably wise. It's probably wise.
I'm thinking about maybe, hey guys, just opened up another can of Diet Pepsi.
There you go. I think
not regular Pepsi. Sorry.
We can get you an advertisement gig. There you go. I'm gonna get sponsorships on this channel just from you. If Mick Hall drinks it,
problem
definitely.
Is, the hole is on that side, so I'm gonna.
Okay, there you go. See, you'd be very entertaining on social media. I believe. I think you would. You'd probably be too much fun.
I would snap. I would snap.
For me, this is not any part of the reason why I did this. But one of the good things about me doing this and spending time on, scheduling folks and all that, one of the good things about it is I don't have time to be just flipping through my news feed or anything like that, because it is depressing and it is, as you said, irritating. And leave aside what the world is doing and all the headlines, but yeah, it's frustrating. And so this gives me an outlet to give me a reason not to do it. So I could just
welcoming you to the dark side.
To the dark side. All right. We're going to shut it down. I'm going to cancel all my social media accounts right now. We're going to be done. We'll be done.
I'll tell you what, you do that and I'll send you out a Diet Pepsi.
There you go. What is it like working for Pastor Terry Angel?
It is magical.
Magical. Almost as magical as Facebook Marketplace.
Wow.
Which one is more magical?
Oh man. All right. I would say Facebook Marketplace is magical.
Okay.
Working for Pastor Angel is awesome. So,
awesome. I like that word.
And so no, it really is. Funny thing is, I did not want to work for him. I know I'm an idiot. I really am. Like everyone I say that to, they're like, it's the dumbest thing ever. But and this is why. It's not because I didn't respect him. Good night. He's an incredible man. The reason why I didn't want to is because our families are close. And I kind of got the feeling like if I went and I worked for him, it would be on the merits of our family's friendship. And I did not want to get a job that way. I didn't. I didn't want um, to, you know, have a job and people say, oh, he's there just because, families are close. And maybe that's why he initially asked me to come. And maybe that's why I've been employed for 11 years. Um, but, and there's probably a lot of people that are saying, yeah, but the reason why I decided to come, and I'm glad now looking back on it, it wasn't a knee jerk. It wasn't a knee jerk, oh, he's asking, oh, good opportunity, I'm going. I truly prayed about it. In fact, when he asked me, I was like, okay, yeah, I'll pray about it. And then, thinking that the situation was almost too good to be true. Here's a rebel who got kicked out of school, got back into school just on the good graces of my pastor, and then is just a few years removed from that, but is trying to do right now, and to be able to work for somebody like Pastor Angel, how's that going to work? In my mind, I was like, let me work in in a small church in West Virginia, or let me go someplace, where I don't have to be as visible or whatever. And but I prayed about it, and through the reading of God's word, he confirmed it to me. Can I give you a verse right now what it was? No, but I can tell you through my personal Bible reading. I'm reading, and God says right there, that's it, that's confirmed. And so so I went and talked to him. I said, all right, I'll come. He said, all right, great. You're going to be teaching in the school. Yeah. Can we pray about it again? So I said, okay, I haven't taken a single education course. He's like, okay, well, just don't tell anybody, and you'll figure it out. So I was like, oh man, this is going to be crazy. So I start working on, and what was even crazier was, just through a lot of different circumstances and a lot of different things that had happened, I had to jump in like midway through the school year, in the second semester. In fact, it was like this time of the year. I jumped in, and so they were done with the first semester, and they were, almost an entire, well, I guess it would have been a report card, a progress report into the second semester. And I'm jumping into all of my classes, which, by the way, I've never taken any education courses for. And the first day, like, I had myself so wound up in knots. I got up there in front of everybody. I'm like, hey, my name is Mick. I'm your new teacher. And then my mind went blank. I was like, give me a second. Let me look at, I forgot what I'm supposed to do. And then from there, and it's amazing because I got to teach, I got to teach the subjects that nobody else wanted to teach, the leftover subjects, and I loved it. I had a great time. Of course, I loved being able to teach history. Who doesn't like history? If you don't like history, you're just an idiot, because it's a bunch of stories. It's like, here, let's have story time, and you get to do that as a junior or senior or whatever grade you're in school. I loved history. And then, I got to do, your geometries. And that was a subject that I didn't really enjoy in high school. But then, like, on the teaching side of it, I was like, actually, this is kind of cool, kind of neat how all of these things work together. And then I got to teach chemistry. And chemistry became one of my favorite classes. Again, in high school, I can't say that I really cared for it. We had one teacher, and he was, he didn't really do a whole lot. We went through the first semester, and we didn't do a single experiment in chemistry. How do you do chemistry and not do a single experiment? But we didn't. And then my dad took over, and I was like, wow, this is actually kind of neat. Well, then I started doing chemistry, and I was like, if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to have fun in chemistry. I'm going to enjoy this. And I had experiments, whether it went with the lesson or not, whether there was an actual teaching point behind it or not. I had experiments because ultimately I wanted them to realize that there's some cool things to be learned here. One time I found out, oh man, now I can't remember what it is. But some elements is highly explosive when it comes into contact with water. And so I was like, I got to get me some of that stuff. So I get my Frey my Frey book with all of this scientific stuff, and so I was like, I'm gonna get whatever that was. I can't remember. Oh, it's gonna kill me.
Don't look at me. I have no idea.
Oh, please, like you don't know. All right,
no,
come on.
I know. I'll call Jay Reed right now, and we can ask him. We'll find out.
Like I know for a fact you got straight A's in every single subject, and your mom could probably attest to it if she's listening right now. Tell me yes or no, but
possibly, but I don't remember most of it probably.
So anyway, so whatever this element was, I found out that it's very explosive, highly flammable when it comes into contact with water. So I went out and I got some of that. I ordered some. It came in. There's this box. I opened the box. In the box is a metal can. Okay, so I get the top off the metal can. Inside are some rocks. In the rocks is a plastic bottle. In the plastic bottle is oil with chunks of this element. And so automatically I'm like, this is going to be great. I think like as soon as I got the box, I was like, let's do this. So I go and I get all my scientific stuff. I got some beakers and I started sawing at this product, and I take it, and I've got this beaker of water, and I made sure everybody got their goggles on. Mm-hmm. We were safe.
Safety first.
Exactly. We go downstairs and we're in the kitchen, and we're in the kitchen in the school because, of course, that's a safe place. And I take it and I drop it into the beaker, and it was kind of cool. It's like it hits the water. It's like zzz, it turns into like a little fireball, and it's zzz, it spins and it lights up. Interesting,
but not quite what you were looking for. You were just
not awesome.
Not awesome. Not quite awesome.
So I was like, okay, what do we got to do? Bigger chunk. I got a bigger chunk, dropped it in the water, zzz, a little bit bigger, a little bit more fire. Oh, okay, better, not best, better. Like, okay. In my years of science experiments, every year we'd have to do a science experiment at Northwest Bible Baptist Church, Northwest Baptist Academy, and the scientific process is you got to have some variables. So what are some variables that we can do? All right, we could try a different substance. No, let's stick with water. I'm going to have two variables. Number one variable, I'm going to put even more. I'm going to get the biggest chunk of this stuff that I can afford while still having some more of this, and I'm going to heat the water because, that has to do something. I put it in the microwave. I don't know how long I put it in there, 2 minutes or something. It's boiling. It's good. I put it on the countertop, and really because of the results, it was a little one, slightly bigger, spinning fireball. I was expecting, a bigger yet fireball. Just so I'm like, okay, here we go. I got my chunk, and I drop it into the beaker, and automatically I knew things were not right. It starts spinning, but then instead of just firing, having this fireball, it starts shooting like magma. It starts shooting like a Roman candle in the lunchroom. It's not the lunchroom, the kitchen. Kids are flying all over the place. They're diving on the ground, and it's in these Roman candle, type of fireballs are hitting the ceiling and then bouncing back onto the countertop. It burned the ceiling tile, and then it burned the countertop in the kitchen. Those marks are still in the kitchen, by the way. I'll send you a picture if you need proof. But you know what? It was like nobody was harmed. Praise the Lord. But that is something that they talked about for years and years and years. Crazy Brother Mick doing his crazy experiments. We have no idea why we did them, but we had fun in that class. And that's what matters. Learning secondary. Which also tells you why I no longer teach. They're like, okay, let's get this guy another job.
Somebody commented, and 2 weeks later they hired Mike Bragg to be the principal or something like that to get you there.
No, Mike and I got hired. We were hired 2 weeks apart. Actually, well, I don't know if we got hired 2 weeks apart, but we came on staff 2 weeks apart. We've been together, for all these years. But yeah. Funny comment nonetheless. Nice. Not true. Wow.
When did you transfer over into becoming the youth pastor then?
We had a youth pastor at the church, and he was doing a great job. That was Brother Jason Winkowski. Mm-hmm. Now he's pastoring in Quincy, Illinois, and I think all along he had a heart to go into the pastorate, and Pastor Angel knew that. And so when he brought me on, and he actually told me, he goes, listen, I'm bringing you on not so you can teach long term, but because, I see that there's an opportunity for you to do this. So about 3 years into it, Brother Jason, felt the Lord tugging on his heart to go pastor. And then at that point, I stepped in as the youth pastor. And so I've been youth pastor here for, I want to say seven or 8 years now.
Nice. What is a just golden nugget from the mind of a youth pastor that you could drop on us? Maybe doesn't even have to be a story, though it can be. What is something you've learned as a youth pastor that you could pass on? I've been youth pastor not quite half the time, a little over half the time that you have, but still something I could learn from you. And before you answer that, though, could you talk to me about what kind of hipster wears a wooden watch? Could you talk about? Is it wooden?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay, I just noticed that.
Okay. The kind of hipster that has a wife that loves him enough to buy him one is the hipster.
Okay.
A wooden watch.
All right. I'm just asking. No, it's nice. I actually.
You bring me on here just so you can make fun of my wooden watch that my wife gave to me.
So tell your wife I apologize, not to you, to her. I apologize to her. It was a throwaway. Anyway, what is something you could talk to us about being a youth pastor that might help us?
Micah, what in our hour conversation tells you that I'm going to give you a nugget of wisdom at this point? I mean,
I told a story. Maybe you could just give me a funny story again. That's okay too. But no, seriously, I know you got something. I'm sure something you've learned.
Yeah. So this is the story that I always go back to with our teenagers, and they're probably sick of it. And it's and it's this: when I was a kid, Mom and Dad, they would take us out skiing every year. Every year we'd go out skiing, and we'd load up in the old Chevy Caravan. We'd head out west, head to Galena or whatever. We go skiing. Well, I remember one time we were heading out that direction, and our van broke down, and we were supposed to be skiing. Our vans broke down, and now we're sitting in a mechanic shop, and we've got our ski gear on because we are ready as soon as we get there. I am jumping on the slopes, and hoping mom and dad get me a lift ticket, by the time I get to the bottom, that way I can get back up. But I'm excited, and so now the whole trip's been ruined. It's been it's just terrible, and so as a teenager, well, I don't even know if I was a teenager at that point, but as a young person, I was just devastated. I was like, oh, this is terrible. But I remember Dad, he taught me something with a quarter. Or no, it wasn't a quarter, it was a penny. He's like, okay, here you go. I'm like, seriously, Dad, what can I do with this? You look like you don't believe that this is a serious story.
No, I'm seriously. I'm inquisitive.
Yeah.
I am.
So anyway, so Dad gives me a penny, and then he has a penny, and he's like, all right, we're gonna play this game. And so we proceeded to flip the penny and see who could get that penny closest to the wall.
Okay.
And so we sat there, and I think we did it for about an hour, and we would do it. My sisters, the folks that came with us, and we ended up having a blast. I don't remember a single trail of the slope that we went down that day, but I remember that little game. And I remember that no matter what's going on, no matter how tough it is, no matter what situation is happening, you can still have a positive outlook. And you can still decide that no matter what, that the devil's not going to steal your joy. You can still have a good time. If you're sitting in a mechanic shop when you're supposed to be skiing, you can pull out a penny and you can still have fun. You can still have a great time because it's still all under God's control. Amen. God worked it all for good, and he made it happen that way. You could spend some time with your family, flipping a penny against the wall and having a blast. So I tell that story probably once a year to our teenagers, and I say, look, I don't care if it's everybody come, we're going to sit in a circle and we're going to just talk. We're going to have a great time. Or if we're going, and we're doing Six Flags Great America, or whatever great, incredible activity it is, we're going to have fun. We're going to have a great time. And so that's just one thing that I've always tried to do is realize that God does not want us to sit around sucking our thumb. He does not want us to throw a pity party. He just wants us to pick up and to move on, and to realize that God has put us in the circumstances that we're in for a reason. And so we can pout or we can pick up a penny.
We hear it all the time, but everything rises and falls on leadership, and that's not just the success of whatever mission you're on. It's also morale too, a lot of times. And thankfully, you had a good dad. I have a good dad, but we got to see firsthand, because there's a lot of times when you're in a situation where it could be the best of times, and somehow people find a way to make it the worst of times. It's always, but my dad always calls it, or I think my mom calls it, being a fun sponge. Is being, just making sure you suck up all the fun from the situation. If I'm not having fun, nobody can have fun. And hate those type of people.
Exactly.
Well, we've been over.
I'm sorry if the sincerity wasn't quite there like you wanted it to, and I'm sorry.
I've been meaning to talk to you about that.
Followers, with me, I'll get my Instagram peeps to hit you up.
I'm waiting for the day, and I don't think you preclude yourself from social media whatsoever. I think you gave a very wise reasoning why you don't. But I'm going to be waiting for the day when it's Mick and Leah Hall. I'm waiting for that day. I'm hoping for the day.
So I probably shouldn't go there. Never mind.
Oh, see, now you can't leave us like that, man. You can't do that.
Okay, it's just a funny thing. It is a funny thing.
Go ahead, please.
People, and I won't go down the exact trail I was going to go, but it's a funny thing when people say, goodbye to social media, I'm done. And then 2 days later, here's a post. That's just
Mm-hmm.
the funniest stuff. And that's what I set myself up for. The day that I get social media, I'm going to have a bunch of people calling me hypocrite, and you're going to be the number one person.
That is fake news. That is fake news.
You're going
I
to
will
be the
not.
number one person on there saying, dude, you are awesome.
That's what I was saying. That's what I will be saying. Absolutely. I'll be saying awesome.
Hey.
In all seriousness, though, I think it has a place when it has a purpose. And you're exactly right. When people are just wasting time on it, for product placement, social media is great. It's fantastic for that, though. In all seriousness, if someone could shout out Diet Pepsi or Pepsi, who owns? Is it Pepsi? Are they the?
You haven't even noticed this, but see that right there?
It was Glare just a little bit. So it's Bose
the entire time.
And you got Hawkeyes back there. Let's see. Anything else interesting? What is that carving thing?
Okay.
Is that a lion? Is that a lion? The glare is on it. I can't really see the wooden.
Speaking of interesting, I find it interesting that as you're looking at all the things that are interesting to you, my family bears no importance. My wife bears. Let's see if there's anything interesting. Obviously not the kid. Obviously not his wife.
Is that a real degree back there, or did someone just print that off for you? Is it from Xerox?
Yeah, it is. It is. In fact, there's a little whiteout at the bottom. Okay. So, would you like a tour?
No, I don't need a full tour. Our viewership. I have time. I will make time for you.
Is there a heart? You know what? You asked me if I had a heart out. You're probably like, man, I should have. Oh, what am I doing? I should have told him.
No, I still feel a little bit bad about downing your wife's gift. I do feel bad about that just a little bit. What's the story on that? When? How long ago did she give that to you? It's a nice watch.
Yeah. Okay. I see how this is changing now. It's like, oh wow, no, really, your wife has good taste.
Seriously,
no, really.
Real quick. I used to sell jewelry in a Hawaiian high-end Hawaiian jewelry store. Okay. And koa wood, which is a wood, I guess, native to Hawaii. I still remember some of this, I guess. They have watches inlaid with them. And I very much considered purchasing one. It was, island, lifestyle, all that stuff. But yeah, so.
I didn't know the Hawaiians were known for quality jewelry, but I guess you learn something every day. Brother Reed would know that. He would know that. He would understand that.
That's true.
So we'll have to give you the tour sometime.
Okay. Well, I think this has been a huge amount of fun, and I think that at some point in the future we'll need to have a redux. We'll need to revisit some of this, because I think there's a lot we didn't get to, and we dwelt on your early years a lot. So maybe we'll get to the mid years next time.
I feel like you brought me on so we could talk a lot about our family's relationships, and we just did not quite get there.
Yeah. Well, you just said, speaking of not interesting, you didn't find my family that memorable when you were 5. 5, you could definitely remember some things at 5, I would think, but you were like, ah.
You realize that our family had more connections than just when I was 5.
It's true. That's true. Absolutely. Now, were you? No, you would have been. You might have been married at this point.
This right now is probably killing your viewership.
It's all right. It's all right. Well, that's my show. I can do whatever I want. It's fine, and I get to have you on. It's all right. I do remember. This is one of my best memories. I couldn't do it right now. We were sitting around playing. Speaking of just having fun, playing. What's that game where you have like different? Oh, Cranium. Is that the game? We were playing at your parents' house, and to win it was guys versus girls. And your mom is very intelligent. My mom, very intelligent. I don't know who else was there to round out the crew, because it was like me, my dad, and your dad. Who the last? Oh, maybe your sister. Your sister was there. And to win the game, I had to spell the word apocalypse backwards. And I think it was like so tight, if I did it wrong, we were going to lose. So that was one of.
Right now, go.
I couldn't do it, man. I've set myself up here.
Straight.
I can't.
Straight A's. Your mom's already posted, I'm sure.
I always. She doesn't have Facebook. She doesn't. She doesn't have social media. We can talk about that, but she doesn't. She stalks every once in a while. But no, I'm not going to do it because I'm going to mess up. E, right? Apocalypse, I think. All right. It starts with it backwards is an E. Anyway, one of my best memories with your family, partly because we won. Guys won. So it was a lot of fun. Brother Mick, I appreciate it. I could let you go now. I appreciate you taking the time. In all seriousness, this was a lot of fun. I greatly appreciate the time. I always ask any last words or anything that you need to get off your chest before we go off the air.
I don't. All seriousness, though, say hi to to your family, to your preacher. Tell Becca we're praying for her, and we're praying for you. And so, why do you?
I'm sorry. You're being super serious in your wife's comments.
I have to get this off my chest. I'm wishing your family well, and you're laughing at me.
So sorry.
You realize that
I've got to stop reading the comments. I've got to just concentrate because your wife said something about she's going to pull all of her followers off the video if I keep making fun of your watch. So, just struck me as so funny. The well wishes are received with humor, with good grace, with amusement, and so we appreciate it. This was namaste. Thank you, Brother Mick. Thank you so much. Stick around for just a second. We're going to go off the air. This has been an experience. The Cliff Note. I try to give the Cliff Note sometimes at the end. We talked about Mary Poppins. We talked about a troubled youth. We talked about Ghostbusters, Blood Red Moons. Talked about making things blow up. Anything I missed? Oh, we talked about a beautiful, just gorgeous wooden watch that you are currently wearing. Seriously, it's nice. It is nice. It was a throwaway joke that didn't land. I'm sorry. I'll stick to my day job. That's really nice.
Tree Hut.
Tree Hut is what it's called?
Yeah. Let me throw this one out there to you.
Okay, go ahead.
For all the people watching right now, Bobo Bird. Just saying.
One more time?
Bobo Bird.
Okay, what is it? I'm missing something here.
It is the up and coming Hawaiian jewelry. No, seriously though, Bobo Bird. That is like wooden watches.
Okay.
I feel like a New York City vendor right now, but they're like $35 in their wooden watches.
You want to buy a Rolex?
That was my segue into the wooden jewelry. Is getting a $30 Bobo Bird, and then I should be sponsored. Do you know how many products could be placed in my videos?
If you would get social media, there you go. You could have Diet Pepsi, Bose, whoever made that wooden carving back. I'm not going to insult whoever made that wooden carving back there.
You know what? I'm sorry. Maybe this is the thing that I need to get off my chest, but not everything's about the money, Micah. Not everything's about the money. Not all of us can be living high on the hog like those in Akron, Ohio. Some of us have to be laboring away in Bourbonnais, Illinois.
Right. Well, yeah.
And with that, I bid you adieu.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Stick around for just a second. This has been a great time. Couldn't have imagined it going any better. So thank you, sir. Stick around. We'll go off the air. Micah McCurry Live number 11 with Mick Hall. Go back and watch it if you missed it. It was a lot